LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the February 5th edition of LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. Thanks for joining me. I picked out the weekend's 17 best, most newsworthy, most informative clips for what should be a really educational, fair use media criticism and political analysis show for you all tonight. As usual, my clips come mostly from the Sunday morning news analysis shows from the big five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media. I also have some great political comedy clips that I always like to start out with and pepper throughout the show, including the awesome Sean Spicer parody by Melissa McCarthy that was on Saturday Night Live last night. I will be covering 4 different subtopics. You can see those subtopics listed in the video description. If you're watching this as a recorded show, I'll put time indexes down there so you can skip to the next topic if you start getting bored with the topic I'm covering. The first topic is the biggest one. It's the Muslim ban and how it's been stopped by the courts. Then I'll have a couple quick clips on how Donald Trump continues to seem to be in love with Vladimir Putin and is like calling the fact that he's a killer kind of the same as what we do here in the United States and making a moral equivalency. Then there'll be a couple clips on the deregulation of Wall Street, and then some clips on free speech in the Trump era, talking about the Berkeley protests. Interspersed in there will also be a bunch of real-time with Bill Maher clips, especially in the Muslim ban section. I'll have several clips with from the discussion between Bill Maher and Sam Harris about Islamophobia and Muslims and what's wrong with Islam and that ongoing discussion that's been going on for years. I guess that's why it's an ongoing discussion. But like I said, I want to start with Melissa McCarthy's great Sean Spicer interview. It fits into the Muslim ban topic because she talked about the Muslim ban as Sean Spicer. At the end of this clip, I haven't, the entire skit, it's about 5 or 6 minutes long, is available free on YouTube. There's a link to that down in the video description. Also my list of my clip list, there's a link to my clip list down in the video description. I'm trying to go too fast because I really want to get to this Melissa McCarthy parody of Sean Spicer. I will tell you why I think it's so great after we watch it. About 3.5 minutes from the entire thing that I've spliced together, not the beginning, or not the very beginning and not the end, and then a couple things cut out in the middle. Here's the clip.
Before we begin, I know that myself and the press have gotten off to a rocky start. All right. In the sense, when I say rocky start, I mean it in the sense of Rocky the movie, because I came out here to punch you in the face, and also I don't talk so good. Now I'd like to begin today by apologizing on behalf of you to me for how you have treated me these last 2 weeks. And that apology is not accepted. Because I'm not here to be your buddy. As you know, President Trump announced his Supreme Court pick on the national TV. Today, when he entered the room, the crowd greeted him with a standing ovation, which lasted a full 15 minutes. And you can check the tape on that. Everyone was smiling. Everyone was happy. The men all had erections. And every single one of the women was ovulating left and right. And no one was sad. Okay, those are the facts forever, and they're so. Glenn Thrush, New York Times, boo, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the travel ban on Muslims.
Yeah, it's not a ban.
I'm sorry?
It's not a ban. The travel ban is not a ban, which makes it not a ban.
But you just called it a ban.
Because I'm using your words. You said ban. You said ban. Now I'm saying it
The
back
president
to you.
tweeted, and I quote,
Yeah.
if the ban were announced with a 1-week notice...
Yeah, exactly. You just said that. He's quoting you. It's your words. He's using your words. When you use the words and he uses them back, it's circular using of the word, and that's from you. Seriously, Glenn? Are you going to start with this right out of the gate, Glenn? I mean, what do you want me to take my nuts out so you can get a better kick at them?
Okay, you had to have known that I would ask that question.
Okay, sit down, Glenn. Who here, just by show of hands, who here hates Glenn? Right? Everybody? 1, 2, 3, infinity? Now, see, let the record show that everyone raised their hands because everybody hates Glenn. So print that. That's your story. Next next question, go.
Yeah, I would like to ask about Steve Bannon's role on the National Security Council.
Yeah, that's a dumb question. That's a stupid question. Sit down, Glenn.
My name is not Glenn.
I know your names. I'm just saying Glenn, like in a general Glenn. It's your word. It's your word. Next, go.
Yeah, I'm also concerned about Steve Bannon. A lot of people are saying he's the one behind this Muslim ban.
Yeah, all right, you guys still aren't getting it. What do you need? You need some props? My word's too big. I got to show you in pictures. Great. Okay, here we go. When it comes to these decisions, the Constitution gives our president lots of power, and Steve Bannon is the key advisor. Okay? And our president will not be deterred. Against radical Muslims. Does anybody else have any questions?
I like the radical Muslims at the end. I thought there was a good series of jokes, and even though I don't think Melissa McCarthy's imitation, her impression of Sean Spicer, she doesn't get the accent exactly right, but the whole like wounded, angry attitude I think is there. The whole like way that he doesn't accept any mistakes on his part and puts it on others, and I mean the whole just the zeitgeist, or the, I don't know what word you would use, the feeling in the press room. Having watched almost all of Sean Spicer's press briefings, I thought that was probably the best Saturday Night Live skit, at least since Tom Hanks did that, when Tom Hanks hosted, they did that Black Jeopardy. I thought that was a really insightful skit. And this one, I mean, it had some broad, physical humor that I cut out at the end there, and there are a couple other, and that I cut out at the beginning. For some reason, I tend not to like the physical humor as much as some of the more cerebral humor, though that wasn't so completely cerebral, I guess. But I really liked it. You can let me know what you think down in the comment section. I thought that it was definitely the best thing on Saturday Night Live, although there were a few good skits. And I also liked the cold open from Alec Baldwin, which was, even though it came before that skit, it kind of followed up on the questions that the press were kept answering or asking the parody of Sean Spicer there about Steve Bannon being behind everything in the White House. Well, that was the cold open. They had Alec Baldwin back as Donald Trump, with a dressed up skeleton as Steve Bannon standing behind him, egging him on to basically ruin the country. And I titled this live stream video Trump's Tantrums, because you'll see some tantrums he pulled on the judge who ruled against him in the Muslim ban, and you just saw Sean Spicer parodied in terms of his tantrums with the press. That's sort of a Trump administration tantrum. And here, this is a parody also of the tantrums he's been having during his phone calls, apparently with Mexico and with Australia. They throw in sort of a fake German thing here that I thought was kind of funny, as I will discuss with you after we watch that clip together over here.
Steve, I think that was bad. Was that bad?
No, it went just according to plan.
Whose plan? Your plan?
No, your plan.
Oh, okay, good. Let's call Mexico. I figured out a smart diplomatic way to get them to pay for this wall.
Hola, Presidente Nieto.
Guy who's going to pay for the wall says what?
Okay.
No, guy who's going to pay for the wall says what?
Okay.
No, you have to say what?
You said what? You're going to pay for the wall.
No way. You pay, loser. You're a bad hombre. Here come our tanks. Prepare to go to war. Hey, Steve, I'm getting too worked up. Maybe I should stop.
Or maybe you should call Germany.
Okay.
Hello? Is this my sweet Barack? Barack Obama, I miss you. I love you.
No, it's Donald Trump.
Oh, gross. Hi, Donald. Are all your people still protesting?
Yes, everyone is marching in the street. They are so upset about how bad The Apprentice has gotten. But I'm doing great. Tomorrow I'm having lunch with a very important up-and-comer.
Okay.
His name is Frederick Douglass. We're trying to get a hold of him right now. I think he's pretty busy, though.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's very cool, Donald. I think I have to go.
Also, I want to be serious for just a moment. Last week, it was Holocaust Remembrance Day. And as you know, 6 million people were at my inauguration. I mean, there were just so many people at my inauguration, but the media refuses to cover it. It's so unfair. And one day I'm going to write a memoir about this struggle and call it My Struggle. What would that be in German, Angela?
It's Angela.
What?
My name is Angela.
No, don't correct me. I'm in charge now. Germany sucks. Your wall failed. Prepare to go to war.
I like that. Your wall failed. Prepare to go to war. The your wall failed joke I thought was funny. I thought the Mein Kampf joke, that's my struggle in German. And for the few of you who didn't get that, I figure most of you probably got the Mein Kampf joke in there. But again, I thought that Donald Trump's impression, his parody, I don't think it totally got the feeling of Donald Trump that Melissa McCarthy got in terms of Sean Spicer, even though in some ways I think it's like a caricature that doesn't have the spirit in some way. If you watch him in between when he's speaking, he has his face in like this, I don't know, this like resting Donald face. I don't know what you would call it. That I don't know. I think that is the essence of the impression for him. That I don't think it should really be the essence of the impression. I've had this long-running critique of the Alec Baldwin impression that a lot of people disagree with. You can disagree with me again down in the comment section, but now I want to move on to some of the actual news clips. This first NBC clip is a news report on Donald Trump's week, and it kind of explains what I was talking about before in terms of the tantrums running from his reaction to the judge who wouldn't uphold his Muslim ban or who put a stay on the Muslim ban, and then also his tantrums regarding the phone calls. And that's all put together in what's another bad week for Donald Trump, I think, in terms of public relations, in terms of being bad for our country. And I will discuss that with you after we watch this 3-minute, 20-second news story from Meet the Press this morning here.
Are becoming protest Saturdays under President Trump. For the third weekend in a row, thousands of people rallied in cities across the country, once again in opposition to President Trump. This week's issue, the travel ban, targeted mainly at Muslims. The Trump administration moved to get the travel restrictions immediately reinstated, but overnight a federal appeals court temporarily denied that request, instead calling for a full hearing on Monday. Here's what the president had to say at a Red Cross gala last night at Mar-a-Lago. The president had a lot to say yesterday before that, mainly on Twitter. One example, when a country is no longer able to say who can and who cannot come in and out, especially for reasons of safety and security, big trouble. Well, the president has taken great pains to deny his travel restrictions amount to a Muslim ban. 4 times yesterday, he did refer to his policy as a ban in tweets. 2 weeks into the Trump presidency, we're learning the answer to the campaign riddle. Should we take Donald Trump literally or seriously? The answer appears to be both.
The world is in trouble, but we're going to straighten it out, okay?
Donald Trump is lashing out, tweeting on Saturday, the opinion of this so-called judge, which essentially takes law enforcement away from our country, is ridiculous and will be overturned. Federal Judge James Robart, appointed to the bench by George W. Bush, explained his decision blocking Mr. Trump's travel ban on Friday night.
The state has met its burden of demonstrating that it faces immediate and irreparable injury.
Visas issued before the executive order have once again been declared valid for now. The travel ban confusion is the latest twist in a chaotic week and has even longtime U.S. allies asking, can the world handle Donald Trump-style diplomacy?
When you hear about the tough phone calls I'm having, don't worry about it.
President Trump is aggressive, tangling with longtime U.S. allies Mexico and Australia.
Don't hang up.
On tour in Melbourne, Australia, Bruce Springsteen didn't pull any punches.
We stand before you, embarrassed Americans, tonight.
And neither did Republicans on Capitol Hill.
If politics is music, the president was off-key.
This, in my view, was an unnecessary and, frankly, harmful open dispute.
President Trump can be unexpected, warning Israel that new settlement construction may not be helpful in achieving peace. Or ambiguous. His administration, led by National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, is ratcheting up its rhetoric on Iran.
We are officially putting Iran on notice.
and levying new sanctions to punish Iran for its ballistic missile test.
They're not behaving.
But refusing to say whether the Trump administration will keep the Iran nuclear deal intact. And there are mixed messages to Russia as President Putin tests Mr. Trump in eastern Ukraine. Amid continuing protests and confusion around the world, and even at his own doorstep, the president is defending his aggressive approach to foreign policy, reiterating once again in the video address.
From now on, it's going to be America first.
And joining me now is the vice.
So that's the NBC report, and I think that it did a pretty good job of showing how aggressive Donald Trump has been, and I think in some ways it's a contrast to the comedy in that some of these aggressive actions and these tantrums and the stuff he's doing they're not funny. They involve, Iran and Russia and places where, and even Australia, there can be real consequences. But by the way, I have been reading your live comments while I'm showing the clips, and I saw a question not so much about the clips, but about my background set along the way here is from Aaron David. Saying that he missed the Star Trek mug that I used to have back here. I replaced it because over the holidays I got this as a gift. You can see this is like a little Mr. Spock here. And I put that back here along with this other gift I got, this little Star Trek communicator pin. Oh, now I've like messed everything up. Whatever. And so those are back there, but I guess you can't see them as well as the mug. So I don't know. Maybe I'll bring back the mug. I've actually started drinking coffee out of the mug, so that's where the mug is. But I suppose I could bring it back. But I want to show one more quick news report. This is from CNN State of the Union. And I want to discuss the fact that CNN didn't have Kellyanne Conway on. But first I want to show the clip. This is how they introduced what's going on with Donald Trump. Also talking a little bit about his tantrums and how he's learning about separation of powers, both in terms of his the Muslim ban and then you'll see, well, I'll discuss the clip after we watch it. It's only about 40 seconds. We'll watch that together over here.
Hello, I'm Dick Tapper in Washington, where the State of our Union is getting a little lesson on the separation of powers. Early this morning, a federal appeals court denied for now the Trump Justice Department's emergency request to resume President Trump's travel ban. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the decision for now of a Washington state judge who suspended the ban. Both sides are being asked to provide briefs. President Trump attacked that federal judge in a series of tweets, scolding, "What is our country coming to when a judge can halt a Homeland Security travel ban and anyone, even with bad intentions, can come into the U.S.?" We'll get into Article 3 of the Constitution in a little bit. The president is at Mar-a-Lago.
So, yeah, and that's not even the worst that he attacked the judge. You'll see in a later clip I show where they ask some of his surrogates to defend him. He actually called him a so-called judge, which seems above and beyond what he should be doing. Mike Pence was on 4 of the shows. He was not on CNN State of the Union with Jake Tapper there. I've been showing for the last couple weeks that even though there have been administration officials on the 4 of the other 5, all of the other 5 except, or all of the other 4, with CNN State of the Union being the 5th, ever since Donald Trump called CNN fake news in his news conference during the transition, they haven't sent any representative. And Mike Pence was on all the other four shows and not on CNN. And apparently CNN was offered Kellyanne Conway and turned her down. I guess they didn't want the alternative facts, although Mike Pence isn't doing all that great a job at giving real facts. And I'll show several clips from Mike Pence. Here's the first one where he is reacting to questioning from Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press, talking about all the problems he's having and his attacks on the judges and why don't they just start over going through Congress. And you can see Mike Pence doesn't back off at all and totally defends the president, whether the facts warrant that defense or not, as I will discuss with you after we watch that together here.
Let me start with the overnight developments in the ban. We now have, there's 10 different suits in various courts. Right. Obviously, the big one now has to one in Washington State. Let me ask you the question this way, and I know you're pursuing an appeal to this decision.
We are.
Is it time to sort of cut bait and say, you know what, rescind the order, go through Congress? Because there is support for the idea, but the specifics appear to be a challenge for you. Any thought of essentially rescinding and trying again?
From
the outset of his campaign for president and the outset of this administration, President Trump has made it clear he's going to put the safety and security of the American people first, and using a list of countries that the Obama administration and the Congress have certified were compromised by terrorist influence. 7 different countries permanently suspending immigration from Syria and suspending for a set period of time the remaining 6 countries is consistent with the president's commitment to do just that. We're very confident the president's operating within his authority as president, both under the Constitution and under clear statutory law. That's what's so frustrating about the decision.
Well, in all honesty, though, the statutory law is confusing, because there's the one that you're referring to in 1952, but there's the one that was passed in the 60s. It seems that some people believe makes this unconstitutional.
Well, look, when you have people as diverse as Alan Dershowitz and Jonathan Turley, who have acknowledged the merits of the president's action under the Constitution and the law, I think it speaks for itself. We're very confident that we're going to prevail. We'll accomplish the stay, and we'll win the case on the merits. But again, the focus here is on the safety and security of the American people.
That's why my question on the idea of sort of pulling it, because if this is a concern and this is something that's, you can't wait. You and I both know the court system's going to take a while. This could take weeks, maybe months. Why not do this in a way where you have proper consultations with different departments? There was a part of this that many Republicans in Congress believe it was done hastily. You have an opportunity to do a do-over. Why not?
Yeah, it was not done hastily. There may have been some leaders on Capitol Hill that were not informed in the usual niceties of Washington, D.C. But look, we live in a very dangerous world. The reality is there are people around the globe who have inspired violence here in the homeland. We just saw in the basement of the Louvre a machete-wielding terrorist from Egypt that came into that country. I mean, the American people know that the threats that we face are real, and they elected President Donald Trump for many reasons, but one of them was for us to rethink our immigration policies relative to ensuring that people who represent a threat to our families and communities don't come into this country. We'll continue to press that, and we remain very confident that the president's actions are on solid constitutional and legal grounds.
Well, let me take you at your word on that. You just brought up the Louvre issue. You noted that the person came through from Egypt, but on this travel ban.
And good for Chuck Todd there at the end for pointing out that he mentioned the guy from Egypt when we don't have a ban on people from Egypt. But there were a couple other logical fallacies or inconsistencies, at least, in what Vice President Mike Pence was saying there, where he was talking about how, first he said it wasn't done hastily, when it's pretty obvious it was done hastily, and even the next clip I show will be from New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, and he can't even say it wasn't done hastily. But then he says, it wasn't done hastily, but now we have to, it had to be done quickly because we have to get our security going, but because it was put together so hastily, now it's going to drag on through the courts, which was actually a pretty smart premise of Chuck Todd's original question, because it kind of boomerangs that argument back that if they really wanted to get this done quickly, they wouldn't have botched it, gone so quickly at the beginning and done it in such a badly formed way so that now it's going to get slowed down in the courts. Even at this point, they could go back and get it done through legislation and make it actually legal and probably get it implemented faster. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens when it goes to court on Monday. By the way, there's a link down in the video description to all the court documents and even of the hearing in the district court in Washington State. If you're interested, it's like over an hour-long court hearing if you want to get into all the nitty-gritty details of why they put a stay on the order and what all the flaws are with it legally and constitutionally. But I wanted to show this one clip from CBS's Face the Nation. It's actually two parts of the interview with New Jersey Governor Chris Christie spliced together, where the host, John Dickerson, is asking him about this Muslim ban, and he doesn't deny that it was kind of botched and put together hastily, but his defense of Donald Trump, I think it's kind of ridiculous, is, well, he's come so far from that totally unconstitutional Muslim ban that he initially suggested, so we should give him credit for, listening to people and not actually calling it a Muslim ban. Which I think is ridiculous, as I will explain after we watch that Chris Christie answer to John Dickerson on CBS's Face the Nation this morning here.
Question about the president's executive order on immigration. Do you think this judge has overreached in his ruling?
I think the judge is wrong on this one. And I think the fact that you have a Massachusetts federal judge disagreeing shows the resiliency and the strength of our Constitution. This is ultimately going to be resolved by the courts as it moves its way up. And I want to say this. I think the president deserves great credit in moving from where he began in the campaign, which was a Muslim ban, which I at the time said I completely disagreed with. The president has listened to experts and advisors over the course of time when he first made that statement to this executive order, which is tailored and direct to try to deal with 7 countries that are having a difficult time dealing with their own ability to control travel of their own people and policing of their own people. I would make it even more tailored if I were advising the president on this directly, but the president has moved an incredible distance from a Muslim ban to where he is now. And the fact is that the reason his opponents are able to attack him, and I believe unfairly, on the substance is because it was implemented in such a haphazard way in that first weekend. And so the president deserves better. The policy is much, much better than where the president began during the campaign. I think that shows this is a president who's willing to listen to experts, willing to listen to advisors, and willing to amend earlier positions in order to try to keep America safe and have us have good relationships around the world.
All right, Governor Christie, we're going to take a brief break here, and I want to pick up on Governor. I want to talk to you about what you called that haphazard rollout of this. When you were U.S. Attorney and as governor, you've worked with Muslim Americans because you argued, or at least I remember you explaining that you argued that good relations in the Muslim community help with law enforcement, help with those connections to do the business law enforcement has to do. Do you think there was any damage in the way this was rolled out, presented, not really explained, that affect that portion and views in the Muslim American community?
Well, listen, I think that, you said earlier in your question to the vice president, is there a need to start over? I don't think there's a need to start over, but I do think there is a need for the administration to make sure they're very, very clear on this. I know the president's hard on this. The president has absolutely no hate in his heart for Muslim Americans. In fact, the exact opposite. This is a president who has great affection for all Americans who are here working hard, raising their families and contributing to the fabric of our society, including Muslim Americans. But this is what happens when things are not explained the right way from the beginning and are not implemented in a way that respects the process and is very careful about it. And that's why I said earlier in the week that the president was not well served by this. Now this means that he has to go out and the administration needs to go out and make sure that they make his point of view clear. But I can tell the American people, well, who knows? Listen, I'm not inside the White House, and this isn't about assigning blame. This is about making sure that it's done the right way. And so in the end, I believe the president deserved better, and because I know his heart, and I know what the president wants more than anything else. He wants to keep the American people safe and secure, and that's all the American people, whether you're Christian, Jewish, Muslim, or any other religion that we have. Listen, John, I'm the governor of the most ethnically diverse state in this country. And I understand that everybody has cares and concerns not only about their own ethnicity, their own religious colleagues, but also about everyone else in America. That's what the president's trying to do here. And I believe in his heart on this one.
But let me ask you again about, you've talked about his heart, but you've also said this was haphazard, which suggests some fallout. You are not without insight on the way he works and the way the people around him work. So I'm going to try you again on this. Whose fault is it and why did it happen? You have an answer in your head. Tell it to us.
John, I'm glad to see you've got ESP going for you this morning. I don't have an answer in my head, John, because I wasn't there. I don't know who the president made responsible. The president has a structure inside the White House with 3 folks who are predominantly in charge of operations at the White House, Mr. Bannon, Mr. Kushner, and Mr. Priebus. And so I can't read minds as to whose primary responsibility this was for this, but that doesn't matter. That's the Washington game of who are we going to blame. I think anyone who looks at this knows that it could have been and should have been done better. Right. We just see when people with green cards were being denied entry that this didn't happen the right way. So if you do have that name and you've read my mind, John, Governor, you say it.
I don't have it, but I do have a commercial I've got to go to. Governor, thanks so much for being with us.
So I thought it was first funny that New Jersey Governor Chris Christie there sort of criticized John Dickerson for saying that he could read his mind, that he had names in mind, but wasn't saying the names, after he also said he knew what's in Donald Trump's heart. That was like the major argument he was making in his previous answer, that he's not Islamophobic, he doesn't hate Muslims, I know what's in his heart, he loves Muslims, he's just worried about our safety. But then after criticizing John Dickerson, saying that he can't read his mind, that he has some names in mind, and there are no names in my mind, he then actually gave out 3 names there. It was Steve Bannon, Steve Miller, and Reince Priebus. Those were one of those 3 people, like, botched this order. Apparently, he didn't say which of the 3, but he did give 3 names there. So that's what I thought was interesting and worthwhile and newsworthy about that clip, and I wanted to give you that commentary on it. And so now I have several clips. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it 5 clips in a row here? Is that 5th? Yeah. 5 clips in a row on Bill Maher and Sam Harris talking about the Muslim ban and Islamophobia. And you may remember that back in January of 2015... Oh, wait. Before I have one Bill Maher clip. No, one more Saturday Night Live clip before I get to the Bill Maher clips. Since I was talking about how they botched the Muslim ban and how it was all done really hurriedly, there was actually this other really funny Saturday Night Live skit where it was like a hastily edited video that they showed of people coming through customs and border enforcement. And it's first Cecily Strong is this nice, polite woman explaining, how it's all going to be convenient, and she's all like a customer service person. And then there's like some Trump appointee and some back office editing all this stuff. And my favorite part is the questionnaire that he shows. I hope you can see it, even though it's shrunk down a little bit. And I'll talk about that a little more after we watch that 45-second clip here.
Our priority is to make this process easy for each and every one of you.
Not you, not you. No way. Nice try. Not you. Oh, wait, he's good. Come on in, bud. No.
In addition, you may be asked to provide a few simple forms. If you need assistance, there will be someone to help you. With all your forms filled out, proceed ahead.
Also forms D9, W8, F12, and D9B.
You're almost done.
Getting started. Effective immediately, all visitors will be subject to extreme vetting procedures, including a highly detailed questionnaire. You also need fingerprints, blood sample, urine sample, stool sample, and you will be required to eat a hot dog in front of us.
So yeah, I think that there's more to that skit, that you can see the whole thing at a link down in the video description. I thought Beck Bennett doing that, especially there's a detailed questionnaire, and you saw the one question was, are you a Muslim? Yes, no, end of questionnaire, and eat the hot dog in front of you. That was the best part of the little skit there, or the little video, but it's worth watching the whole thing. I suggest you do it when you have a chance. And now finally I started to introduce the 4. That's why I was confused that there were 5 when I know there are only 4 clips that I'm going to show of Sam Harris and Bill Maher talking about Islamophobia and the Muslim ban. And this goes back to a video I made back in January 2015.
Our priority is to make this process easy for each and every...
I'm screwing things up. Here is the video that I made in 2015. You can see it's called Sam Harris Defamed as Islamophobic by Glenn Greenwald, Reza Eslan, ? And I'm not going to go back into all the arguments I made as to why I think Sam Harris was wrong to claim he was defamed by being quoted out of context, although you'll see in some clips I'm about to show, or in one clip, they attacked this Muslim named Linda Sarsour, and by taking some of her old... But first I want to show the introduction, the beginning of Muslim ban. Of course, they're against the Muslim ban, but they still don't really go into the details. They just use...
On in Trump's administration, he would do something stupid, a mayor, because when you elect someone mayor, then they have to say out loud our Western values, and he has. He doesn't even like it when women cover their face.
Yeah, and when you view this as a war of ideas, you see that we need to empower the actual reformers in the Muslim world. So
right.
And the way to do that is not to put up a blanket ban.
Also because you never know what is in someone's mind. Do you remember this, just last year, the Strasbourg cell that they broke up in France?
Yeah,
That's what they called it? Okay, I remember the headline in the New York Times a few days after said, "Terror suspects led mainstream lives, unsettling France." Right. Because you don't know what's in. They were saying they don't have beards. The guy was he ran the grocery. He sold liquor. Right. He was not scowling. He was smiling at the children. You don't know what is in people's minds.
Yeah, but
that is kind of an insidious argument that I hear from Bill Maher. And he's made this argument before that, you know, even the people who you think you know, they could be like secret terrorists. And I mean, of course, that's true of anyone, but for some reason he sees the Muslims as like more sneaky or somehow. I don't know why he continually makes that point. And it's also a little bit contradictory to the point they'll make later. And I have been criticizing Bill Maher and Sam Harris since back when I made that video 2+ years ago, where they're trying to say they know about the attitude. They can tell someone's attitude if they're, you know, conservative Muslim based on these polls that are actually flawed in a lot of different ways. But here in that clip, they're saying, you know, you can't really tell what's in their mind, even if you know them, but you can really tell what all these people think based on these poll results that. I'll get to that clip in a little bit, but first I want to show the clip that I talked about where they attacked this actual liberal activist, civil rights activist, civil liberties activist who's been in these women's marches. Her name is Linda Sarsour, and I will talk about their attacks on her. And this one is especially bogus. There's like a bait and switch attack that I will discuss after we watch that clip together. Over here.
I know you were having a bit of a Twitter spat sometimes with this woman, Linda Sarsour. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, she was at the march, and you know, you mentioned that she tweets things like sort of semi-supportive of Saudi Arabia, saying because they give women maternity leave more than we do.
Yeah.
They have some.
Well, this is the problem. So the left has allied itself with Islamists and closet Islamists, and she's none too closeted, but she's a hijabi, and the hijab was promoted as one of the empowering symbols of feminism for this march, right? And she's one of the organizers.
But that's not the full burqa.
No,
the burqa. No. Show the picture of the burqa. You see, like this is what I want liberals to understand. That like there are some countries, I think France has banned this. I'm not for banning. I think that's not the right approach, is to tell anybody how they can dress, but also stop saying that's normal. Well, that's not normal.
So,
if you think that's normal, you are so part of the problem. There is a human being in there who might want to feel the sun on her face or make eye contact or register a smile.
And most are not there voluntarily. That's the thing. I mean, you're not for banning. I mean, you should be able to wear whatever costume you want, but the subset of people who are wearing these things purely because they want to, without being coerced by their community, right? Without having a level of misogyny.
Or brainwashed from centuries. I mean, but no one wants to be that. And also, I mean, why are they covering women like that? Because otherwise men might get aroused.
Right.
So they're blaming the women for the men's horniness. I mean, if you were, I mean, you couldn't create in a lab a idea that should be more opposed by liberals. Then we cover the women and blame them if men get horny.
And we have one of this woman you mentioned, Linda Sarsour. She's one of the organizers of the Women's March. She has people like Bernie tweeting, "I march with Linda," right? But she's someone who has gone after Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who's a real feminist hero, and she's tweeted absolutely defamatory things at her, like she doesn't deserve her vagina, she deserves an ass whipping. I mean, she's a theocrat.
Now, I don't think that Linda Sarsour is a theocrat. She wouldn't be working with ACLU activists I know. I mean, I haven't really gone into her whole background. I don't know exactly all the the comments that Sam Harris was talking about there. I did notice that she tweeted this in the last 24 hours here. This is a Linda Sarsour tweet. Don't judge me by tweets taken out of context or something stupid I said 6 years ago. Judge me by my clear civil and human rights track record. And that's basically what I've seen. What I know about Linda Sarsour is the work she's done for civil rights and civil liberties. I haven't, investigated every single comment she made, and maybe she did say some stupid thing 6 years ago, but it's actually kind of disingenuous for Sam Harris to talk about that after that was the whole premise behind this. Sam Harris defamed as Islamophobic. He claimed that he was being taken out of context by something he wrote, and I actually went and bought his book and looked at the entire context, and he was not really being taken out of context when he said that he thought that we should actually, bomb people or kill Muslims based on their beliefs, because their beliefs are basically actions in Kuwait. They tell us how they're going to act, or, it was almost like Minority Report based on people's, radical Muslim beliefs. We know that they're going to be dangerous, and so we have a right to kill them. That was basically what he said in his book, and then he claimed when people called him on it as that being, unacceptably aggressive, that, and as I said in the video, that there has to be some sort of imminent threat. It's not just based on someone's religious beliefs that you should be able to kill them. He said that he had been quoted out of context, and I don't think he was. And what I thought was especially disingenuous about the beginning of that clip is they talked about Linda Sarsour being in a hijab, which is basically a headscarf, and then they did this bait and switch over to the burqas, which they did say, it's not the same as a hijab, but then they started criticizing the burqa, which I find it difficult to believe that someone would willingly want to be in a burqa, but if someone did decide that, I mean, whatever costume they want to wear, even Sam Harris said that, and it's a little bit, I mean, you could say that about anything up to nudists. If you were a nudist, you could say that about people who believe in wearing clothing, and those are the same arguments that people make about various different changes in culture. That it wasn't very long ago that showing ankles was risque in Western culture, but those change over time, and I think that women should be able to wear whatever they want, and they shouldn't be shamed into wearing burqas, certainly, but they shouldn't be thrown off of French beaches for their decision to wear burkinis either. But that's something I'm going to discuss after I show this next clip having to do with assimilation. And I think that, and they also talk about painting with too broad a brush and the use of statistics. That's all in this next clip, which I will discuss after we watch it together over here.
But also, you're not automatically a racist if you have concerns about assimilation.
Exactly.
Because of the ideas that we're talking about, there are sometimes assimilation problems. I don't think we have a lot of that in America because...
Well, but because we've been lucky with these two oceans, right? And so we have to acknowledge that Europe has a problem we don't want to have.
It's America. People, if a Muslim here in America wants to take off the thing, she can.
Yeah.
And she can do that without fear of someone beating her for it. I mean, if someone wants to come out of the closet here in America, if someone wants to marry a non-Muslim, these are not options available to vast amounts of Muslims in the world. So let's address the question that they're saying now, who hate us, which is you paint with too broad a brush, because we mentioned some of these things.
Right.
And I don't think, we paint with a brush. It's neither too broad.
We're painting with statistics, right? I mean,
right.
You're talking about 43% of this and 78% of this. And on any specific question, these numbers can move around, but the numbers are never consoling, right? When you ask the Muslims in the UK whether you want to live under Sharia law, right? Or whether the Danish cartoonist should be imprisoned, right? You don't get the tiny numbers you would hope to get, right? And that's a problem that we have to speak honestly about. And just as you just said, you don't have to be a fascist or a racist or even a Trumpian to not want to import people into your society who think cartoonists should be killed for drawing the prophet, right? That's a totally rational thing not to want. And the left has been demonizing anyone who will talk about this.
Right, and I would say to you, finally, asking you, what is the proper liberal response? And I think it begins with, yes, understanding that we are never going to defeat terrorism if we don't reform Islam.
Yes.
And we are not going to reform Islam if we can't talk about it.
And if Muslims can't talk about it.
And Muslims can't.
If we don't encourage, empower, and oblige Muslims to talk honestly about this, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So you notice Sam Harris, this is like the last part of that entire 12-minute discussion. By the way, there's a link down in the video description. You can see the entire video free on YouTube of that 12-minute discussion between Bill Maher and Sam Harris. And in that end part, Sam Harris kind of contradicts the beginning part where they're saying, oh, we're against the Muslim ban. But then he's saying, but it shouldn't be wrong to not import people who have these ideas that are in conflict. And he's talking about Muslims there, but he's doing it in kind of a subtle way where he's trying to differentiate between, the good Muslims and the bad Muslims, which is not something he always does when they do paint with too broad a brush and they do use statistics in dishonest ways. And I don't really want to get back into that whole argument that, like I said, I made a couple years ago in this video that I've also put a link down to in the video description. But the other thing that I think Bill Maher got totally wrong there, they started talking about why is it that America hasn't had such a problem with our Muslims here in, American Muslims being radicalized as much as, say, in Europe. And he started talking about it's because here, you can take off the burqa without worrying about it, and you can come out as gay without worrying about it. And but that's also true in Europe. And Europe is even more secular and more accepting of giving up your Islam than here in the United States. What is different about the United States is in the United States we have a lot more tolerance of different religions and free exercise of religion and pluralism where, there's certainly Islamophobia and certain parts of the country where it's very difficult to be a Muslim. But in general, at least the religious right tends to want the government to allow the free exercise of all religions, and they certainly embrace Judaism at this point, and they even will sometimes embrace the right of Muslims to give free exercise, and the law certainly protects that more than what goes on in Muslim countries. In European countries regarding Muslims. I was talking about that burkini ban. Here in the United States, we actually allow Muslims to practice their religion as part of a pluralistic society more than they do in those European countries, which is, and that actually, our tolerance of religion, I think, helps Muslims integrate as Americans, while over in European countries, they tend to ghettoize more, where because they're not accepted in the general culture, if they want to remain Muslims, they have to just stay with Muslims. And I don't know, that's my analysis. You can tell me if you think that I've misanalyzed what goes on in Europe versus what goes on in the United States. That's based on several different analyses I've read over the years of the difference between, why it is that U.S. Muslims have not been as radicalized as European Muslims. It also has to do with the much higher immigration rates being, closer to the Middle East in Europe. That's also a huge factor. But I want to show one last clip of the Sam Harris Bill Maher discussion. This isn't from that 12-minute video during the regular broadcast. This is actually from the overtime segment, where I thought it was interesting that Bill Maher tried to claim that he never said that Islamophobia wasn't a bogus term, that it's a real thing and we should have recognized it all along. It's just they exaggerate Islamophobia. And Sam Harris actually disagrees and says that we shouldn't use the term Islamophobia. And I think what Bill Maher's saying here is a little disingenuous. I seem to recall him poo-pooing the idea of Islamophobia in multiple previous instances, and now that Donald Trump and the rise of Trumpism has shown that there really is real Islamophobia out there, he's, I think, demurring a little, but Sam Harris won't even go that far. This is the last Bill Maher Sam Harris clip I'll show tonight over here.
Did we even talk about the people in Quebec? I mean, a terrorist act against Muslim brothers and sisters, and they are victims. No, I'm saying most people who are victims of that terror are Muslims themselves. We understand that.
Right. And by the way, until Donald Trump became president, you know, Islamophobia, which is real, we never denied that true. I mean, there are people who just don't like other people because they're different.
Yeah, although I would argue it's a bad word that we shouldn't use. It is a propaganda term that prevents this kind of conversation.
But it's also, there's a component of it that is also real and actual happens. But, you know, until Donald Trump came along, there was the one in Texas, the mosque that was attacked in Texas, and then in Quebec. It was mostly non-violent. You know, it was, there were probably like horrible things people say to people at the supermarket, or dirty looks, or Facebook, whatever. But now it took him literally a week to turn that violent.
Right.
And it's going to get worse. I mean, he's just going to make it worse. I would bet you any amount of money that this is not going to turn out well for us as far as what he's actually trying to do, which is keep us safer. You would agree with that?
Well, what Bill Maher says there at the end is most likely true, that things are going to get worse and violence against Muslims is going to get worse. Although the idea that there wasn't violence against Muslims before Donald Trump, that it was all just like people didn't like Muslims, but nobody really acted on it before Donald Trump. Well, that's there have been attacks on Muslims going all the way back to 9/11 and all the way through the Quebec attack that Michael Eric Dyson there was talking about, but I mean, I thought that was kind of bogus reasoning on the part of Bill Maher, trying to claim that you know, that this was like a result of Donald Trump. And then notice how at the beginning Bill Maher tried to claim that, you know, Islamophobia, it is a real thing, which he never really said before, and was, like I said, I think if I look back, I could find a couple instances where he claimed it's, you know, Islamophobia isn't a real thing. I always get comments about that because, you know, fear, you should be afraid of Islam, and, you know, they've talked Islam being the motherlode of bad ideas. That's, you know, Sam Harris and Bill Maher agreeing to that, and they have their own previous statements that painted with too broad a brush and went too far, and now I think Bill Maher has recognized a little bit the error of his ways, but Sam Harris is just trying to pretend he's a liberal now in the era of Trump, but he's not really, I don't think, disavowing any of his views about Muslims that definitely painted with too broad a brush and definitely advocated some really nasty ideas that I talked about once again in that video I made a couple years back that I've linked down in the video description, and you can watch it if you want at your leisure, and you can tell me if you agree with it or not. But so that's the last clip I want to play on the Muslim ban. I have 3 sets of 2 clips coming up, 2 on what Donald Trump said in his interview with Bill O'Reilly prior to the Super Bowl. This was a clip that was actually previewed yesterday on Fox News on Saturday, where he sort of equated Vladimir Putin as a killer with what the United States has done in the past, saying we're not so innocent. And in some ways, there's some truth to that, but I mean, it's certainly not exactly. I mean, the fact that the United States has been involved in killing, some of which is not moral or ethical or even legal, and you know, you can come up with instances in the past, but I still don't think you should draw the moral equivalence to Vladimir Putin. And I want to show 2 clips on this. The first one, it starts with a little introduction showing a clip of Donald Trump talking to Bill O'Reilly and saying this thing about Vladimir Putin. This is on CNN's State of the Union, and then Jake Tapper has the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on, and I think I may have a chance to do my Toby the Turtle impression, because he really sticks to his talking points on this one. You know, so I'm not going to critique every utterance of the president. That's one of his talking points when, you know, he definitely says Vladimir Putin is a thug, and he thinks that, you know, the United States is an exceptional country, and he wouldn't make the comparison. but he doesn't directly critique what Donald Trump says. He said the same thing about what Donald Trump said on judges. I didn't take that clip, but it's kind of I'll do my little Toby the Turtle impression of Mitch McConnell sticking to his talking points after the introduction from Jake Tapper showing what Donald Trump said to Bill O'Reilly about Vladimir Putin over here.
Lago this weekend, but he'll make an appearance at the Super Bowl via an interview with Fox News' Bill O'Reilly that will air during the pregame show. Here's a little clip.
A lot of people, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get along with him. He's a leader of his country. I say it's better to get along with Russia than not. And if Russia helps us in the fight against ISIS, which is a major fight, and Islamic terrorism all over the world, major fight, that's a good thing. Will I get along with him? I have no idea. It's very possible I won't.
Putin's a killer.
A lot of killers. We got a lot of killers. Why, you think our country's so innocent?
We got a lot of killers. Let's get right to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who joins us from Louisville, Kentucky. Leader McConnell, thanks for joining us. Let's start right there. Are you comfortable with the President of the United States seeming to equate U.S. actions with those of Putin's authoritarian regime?
Well, look, Putin's a former KGB agent. He's a thug. He was not elected in a way that most people would consider a credible election. The Russians annexed Crimea, invaded Ukraine, and messed around in our elections. No, I don't think there's any equivalency between the way the Russians conduct themselves and the way the United States does.
Does it trouble you that he said this? I mean, I'm trying to imagine your response if President Obama had defended the murderous reign of Putin by saying, you think our country's so innocent?
Well, look, I'm not going to critique the president's every utterance, but I do think America is exceptional. America is different. We don't operate in any way the way the Russians do. I think there's a clear distinction here that all Americans understand, and no, I would not have characterized it that way.
I'm not going to spend the whole interview on this, but you say all Americans understand. Are you confident the president understands it? Because he just said something that could have been broadcast on RT. I mean, he said, we got a lot of killers out there. You think our country's so innocent, when asked specifically by Bill O'Reilly, no less, about Vladimir Putin being a thug. Again, if Barack Obama had said this, I can't imagine there wouldn't be protests in the street.
Look, Jake, I can speak for myself, and I already have, about my feelings about Vladimir Putin and the way the Russians operate. I'm not going to critique every utterance of the president. I obviously don't see this issue the same way he does.
All right, let's move on. Turn to another topic that came up during President Trump's pre-Super Bowl interview.
Yep. I'm not going to critique every utterance of the president's. I don't agree. I'm not going to critique every utterance of the president. Yep. Okay. That's the best Toby the Turtle impression I can do for that's Mitch McConnell's talking point. And I think he actually did a better job of showing his disagreement with what Donald Trump said in terms of the moral equivalency between Vladimir Putin and previous leaders of the United States, or what's going on, comparing a still somewhat fragile, possibly with Donald Trump as president, but still a liberal democracy with a constitution that we actually generally uphold, with what's going on in Vladimir Putin's Russia. And I think that over on NBC's Meet the Press, Chuck Todd did a great job of holding Vice President Mike Pence to account when he tried to wiggle out of what Donald Trump told Bill O'Reilly. You'll see first he shows the clip again, and Mike Pence says, oh, I don't think he was drawing moral equivalence. He's just trying to get good relations. And then you'll see that Chuck Todd on NBC's Meet the Press was ready with all the really sketchy authoritarian things that Vladimir Putin's been doing as the ruler of Russia. And I will discuss that clip with you after we watch Mike Pence answer to fairly good questioning, I thought, from Chuck Todd on Meet the Press this morning over here.
To respond to something, an excerpt of the Super Bowl interview the president's doing about Vladimir Putin. Here it is.
Do you respect Putin?
I do respect him. Will I get along with him? I have no idea. It's very
He's a
possible
killer,
I
though.
won't.
Putin's a killer.
A lot of killers. We got a lot of killers. Why, you think our country's so innocent?
Moral equivalency?
No.
Is there a moral equivalency there? What was that, Mr. Vice President?
No, not in the least. Not in the least. I mean, look, President Trump has been willing to be critical of our country's actions in the past, and what you're hearing there is a determination by the President of the United States to not let semantics or the arguments of the past get in the way of exploring the ability to work together with Russia and with President Putin in the days ahead. Specifically, if you played the rest of that interview, he said he didn't know if we would be able to get along with them better, but the President's top priority is to hunt down and destroy ISIS at its source. We have a common interest with Russia to do that. The President has made it very clear. He doesn't know whether he'll have a better relationship.
I mean, you know
with
the
Russia.
Putin record here. Let me just put it up here. Obviously, a former KGB agent, in itself an institution of mass killings. What he's done to fund and promote the separatists in eastern Ukraine. Proxy wars that he's gotten involved in that, of course, ended up in the killing of innocent passengers on MH17. Then there's the list of mysterious deaths that are Putin-related. This is not something, what American leader has done something similar? That's what the President seemed to say there.
No, that's not what the President said in the least. About
then why can't he say a negative thing about Vladimir Putin?
He has expressed himself in the campaign, an election that he won, that he was determined to go forward and see whether or not we might be able to start anew in a relationship with Russia. I mean, the President has said many times, if we got along with Russia better, that would be a good thing for the world. If we were able to work with Russia to hunt down and destroy ISIS and confront radical Islamic terrorism, that would be a good thing. And what you have in President Trump is someone who is not going to look in the rearview mirror so much as looking out the windshield. But he's also made it very clear, Chuck, maybe not, maybe it's not going to work out, but I think he's absolutely determined. He had a productive conversation with President Putin. Okay. He spoke to the Ukrainian President Poroshenko yesterday about the need to maintain the ceasefire. He's going to continue to engage these world leaders. He's going to put America first. And he's going to look, as he always does, for a way that we can move forward and make a deal that will advance the interests of the United States.
Are you comfortable with using those same words to describe Vladimir Putin?
Well, using what words?
That basically, you know, yeah, he's a bad guy, but we've done some bad things too. Are you comfortable with that moral equivalency?
Again, I don't accept that it's a moral equivalency. I really don't, Chuck.
Do you think he misspoke?
No, I truly believe. Look, President Trump has been critical of American policy in the past, and I expect he's always going to continue to be candid with the American people. But what you have in this president is an absolute determination to re-engage the world. I see it in the telephone calls with world leaders. We saw it when Prime Minister May came. But it's to re-engage world leaders on American interests, to bring American strength back to the world stage. Okay. And President Donald Trump, people know that here's someone who knows how to put a deal together. Right. And if he can make a deal with Russia or other countries that's going to advance the security of the American people and advance the interest of peace in the world, we're going to look to do that.
All right, Vice President Pence, I'm going to leave it there. I know you're about to go to the Super Bowl. Do you have a rooting interest?
You know...
And Chuck Todd was not the only person to ask Mike Pence who he was rooting for in the Super Bowl. Apparently, he's not rooting for anyone because his Baltimore Colts aren't in there. I think that's what, or maybe the Indiana Colts from whatever. I don't even follow football, so what do I know? But the point being that I thought Mike Pence's answer to Chuck Todd was really weak there. The idea that it wasn't moral equivalence, he didn't misspeak, that somehow this is, if President Obama had said something like that, you know, I hate people actually usually who make the argument that, you know, if something that never happened had happened, you people would have reacted really badly, so we can react badly now to something that actually did happen. Usually I don't like that argument, but I heard from the Republicans for so many years about how President Obama was apologizing, you know, the apology tour, and how he was, you know, not believing in American exceptionalism, that I can't help myself from making the argument that if Barack Obama had said, what Donald Trump said to Bill O'Reilly, the Republicans would have gone crazy. And you can let me know what you think about that down in the comment section. That I think that it's possible that this, and even the Muslim ban, I've been reading some theories that this is all sort of a distraction from the real kleptocracy that's going on, and there's some really bad other stuff going on. I didn't want to leave the broadcast without having a couple clips on an issue that's not getting a lot of play, and that's the giveaway to Wall Street. There's going to be a big giveaway to the rich coming up in terms of the tax cuts, but in terms of getting rid of the regulations on the Wall Street banks, the regulations that were actually put in place to try to stop the bad behavior that led to the big economic crash back at the end of the George W. Bush administration, back the last time we had a Republican. Well, apparently they did not learn their lesson, and there were very few questions about this. One place I saw it was a question of Mike Pence on Fox News Sunday, of all places, and I have to give Chris Wallace credit for asking this question of Vice President Mike Pence, since he was on 3 other programs, and I did not see this question asked anywhere else of the Vice President. And I think even the follow-up from Chris Wallace was pretty good, talking about how the cabinet appointments are not really following through on Donald Trump's rhetoric, out to the working class people in the Rust Belt in Ohio and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, how he was going to fight Wall Street, and Hillary Clinton was the candidate of Wall Street because she made all these speeches, and I was even worried about Hillary Clinton being too close to Wall Street, but look at what Donald Trump is doing, and that's why I voted for Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump, because a Democrat who's maybe too close to Wall Street is nowhere near as bad as a Republican who is basically the tool of Wall Street. And I think that even comes through on Fox News Sunday this morning, the questioning of Chris Wallace of Vice President Mike Pence. And I will also show Bernie Sanders talking about this even more passionately, but Mike Pence's answer is even weaker than his answer to Chuck Todd in that previous clip. Here it is from Fox News Sunday this morning here.
The president issued other orders this week, basically saying that he's going to revisit the Dodd-Frank regulations on the financial sector that were enacted after the 2008 crisis. Isn't this president sending a message to Wall Street that he's going to back off?
No, the message that we're sending to Main Street is that we're going to pull back this mountain of red tape that is stifling access to capital and loans, particularly for small businesses across this country, and we're going to get this economy moving again. I got to tell you, both on the campaign trail with the president and since the outset of the administration, in meetings with business leaders and labor leaders, they tell us that in addition to cutting taxes, that rolling back the avalanche of red tape that's stifling this economy and, frankly, stifling the availability of loans and financial resources for companies is of paramount importance. And the action the president took this week, surrounded by leaders in the Congress who've been working to reform, if not repeal, Dodd-Frank, is just the beginning of that effort. And we're going to continue to work hard while we protect consumers along the way. We're going to continue to work hard to advance the kind of regulatory reform that'll make resources and loans available for a growing America.
But, Mr. Vice President, the market spoke on Friday. The price of Wall Street firms, their stocks, rose sharply, and the fact is that two of the key players in revisiting the rules are going to be Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, and White House advisor Gary Cohn, and they are both former top executives at Goldman Sachs. That sure sounds like you're aiming at Wall Street, not Main Street.
Well, but I understand that, and we're proud to have both of those men involved in this administration to bring their expertise. But look, the reality is that you can talk to small business owners across this country, and since the passage of Dodd-Frank, frankly, we've seen the availability of loans in banks across the country begin to dry up for small businesses. Simply the cost of compliance for smaller loans is too heavy in the wake of Dodd-Frank. That's what we're hearing from Main Street, and what you saw the president do this week is begin to roll back those regulations, use
use common sense and really unleash the kind of resources that are going to make it possible to see small business America and all of business America grow and create jobs.
The president and another.
So I don't think Chris Wallace really did that great a job of trying to rebut any of those last talking points that Vice President Mike Pence used, where he tried to cover up what they're really doing by saying, yeah, it's really going to help Main Street. But I think the original question, and certainly the follow-up question about the stocks of Wall Street banks going up, and the two Goldman Sachs people, not to mention Steve Bannon, who used to work for Goldman Sachs as well, that they're really rolling back the regulations on Wall Street that stopped the misbehavior, or it didn't even go far enough to stop the misbehavior that caused the 2008 crash. There were still banks that were too big to fail, and the fact that it didn't go far enough makes me even more worried that it's been rolled back, and I'm glad that Chris Wallace at least brought it up with Mike Pence, but I don't think he did enough to rebut it, and that's why I'm actually very happy to show this next clip, where this is Senator Bernie Sanders, who is over on CNN State of the Union talking to Jake Tapper, and Jake Tapper asked him about this. There's sort of a subtle dig at Bernie Sanders partway through this clip, where Jake Tapper mentions how, people were so worried, maybe it was because people brought up Hillary Clinton's Wall Street ties, or he almost is talking about how Bernie Sanders may have weakened the ability for people to attack Donald Trump and to get the people who believe Donald Trump. But Bernie Sanders, doesn't really take that bait, but he does go into a really strong argument about Donald Trump taking the country in a very dangerous direction, not just in terms of Wall Street, but in terms of a lot of other things, and a plea to reasonable Democrats. He even talks about Mitch McConnell being like a good guy and a reasonable guy, even though he disagrees with him on everything, and he makes a plea to him that he has to step in before Donald Trump becomes basically an authoritarian. And I'll discuss that clip with you. This is maybe, again, the sleeper clip of the episode. This is, I think, maybe, other than maybe the Melissa McCarthy clip, this may be my favorite clip of the night. Bernie Sanders, what might have been, and I'll talk about it with you after we watch it together here.
Took steps on Friday to begin dismantling the Dodd-Frank financial regulations that were put into place following the economic crash of 2008. Take a listen to President Trump talking with Jamie Dimon, the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase.
So many people, friends of mine, that had nice businesses, they can't borrow money, they just can't get any money because the banks just won't let them borrow because of the rules and regulations and Dodd-Frank, so we'll be talking about that.
You have long called for stronger banking regulation. There is this study by the Harvard Kennedy School of Government that found that community banks were having a difficult time complying with the regulations in Dodd-Frank. Do you see any upside at all to relaxing any of the Dodd-Frank regulations?
It is hard not to laugh to see President Trump alongside these Wall Street guys. I have to say this, Jake, and I don't mean to be disrespectful. This guy is a fraud. This guy ran for president of the United States saying, Donald Trump, I'm going to take on Wall Street. These guys are getting away with murder. And then suddenly he appoints all of these billionaires. His major financial advisor comes from Goldman Sachs, and now he's going to dismantle legislation that protects consumers. This is a guy who ran for president saying, I'm the only Republican. I'm not going to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And then he appoints all of these guys who are precisely going to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. So I hope that all of those folks who voted for Mr. Trump because he thought that he would stand up for working people, man, this guy is, he's a good showman. I will give you that. He's a good TV guy. But I think he's going to sell out the middle class and the working class of this country, and that business on Wall Street. He told us, in fact, it's in the Republican platform, he is going to bring back Glass-Steagall. We're going to be dividing up commercial banks from investor banks from insurance companies. Then he has all of the big Wall Street guys on his side, and now he's working for Wall Street.
But Senator Sanders, while you very strongly made the case throughout the campaign after Hillary Clinton got the nomination that President Trump would do this, and that even though he was using some of the same rhetoric you used when it came to Wall Street, not to believe him and trust him, there were a lot of Sanders supporters out there who I think believed President Trump, then candidate Trump, partly because there had been so many accusations of Hillary Clinton being so tied to Wall Street.
Well, here's my only point, Jake. Look, it is one thing if you run a campaign that says, look, I think Wall Street's great. You know, I think the drug companies are great. I think we have to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And if people want to vote for that, that's fine. That's democracy. But you have a president who I think in a totally fraudulent campaign said that I'm going to stand up for the working people. Look at his cabinet. We've never had more billionaires in a cabinet in the history of this country. Look at his appointees. These are people who are going to go after the needs of working families, the elderly, the children, the sick, and the poor. That is called hypocrisy. And by the way, I think people like Mitch McConnell, who you just had on, who is a mainstream conservative politician, are going to be put into a very, very difficult place. And I would hope that people like Senator McConnell and other Republicans have the courage to stand up, A, to Trump's movement toward authoritarianism, toward a situation where Trump says, everybody is terrible and wrong. I am the only guy who can protect the American people. You know what? Men and women in our military did not stand up and fight and die to lead us in the direction of an authoritarian society. We are a democracy, not a one-man show. We are not another Trump enterprise. It's called the United States of America. We're not a business run by Mr. Trump. And I hope that Senator McConnell, who's a decent guy, conservative guy, I disagree with him on everything. But I would hope that he and his Republican friends will make it clear to Trump that this country belongs to all of us and that it's not a one-man show.
Senator, there's a big fight going on.
Wow, that was pretty strong stuff from Senator Bernie Sanders. Makes me, again, happy that I voted for him in the California primary. I would have preferred him as the Democratic nominee. I don't know if he could have beaten Donald Trump or not. It's like one of those what-ifs that we'll never know the answer to, but I certainly agree with that strong rhetoric. It's certainly a much better answer to a similar question to the one that Vice President Mike Pence totally dodged and fudged and didn't really answer, that Senator Bernie Sanders was pretty direct about the bait and switch that Donald Trump is pulling, and I hope that by the next presidential election, if not by the midterms, that the slim majority of people in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Ohio that gave Donald Trump the presidency without giving him a majority of the popular vote, but there's, like 70,000, 100,000 votes in those three states, that those people who thought that he was going to fight Wall Street and bring back jobs, that they're going to learn the truth, and that Donald Trump is basically going to be a one-term president, and he's going to lose a lot of power and lose. It's very tough for him to lose the Senate. It's almost impossible, really. But if he does badly enough, and we are overdue for a recession, I would hate for a recession to happen, even with Donald Trump as president. But I don't know. I just really am inspired by what Bernie Sanders said more than I am pessimistic, though I am pessimistic about Donald Trump and his effect on the economy going forward. You can let me know what you think about what Senator Bernie Sanders said there, and what you think is going to happen to the economy under Donald Trump's deregulation of the banks, because that worked so well last time. Down in the comment section, let me know what you think. So now I'm down to my last two clips. Both of these are on the topic of free speech. The second one is Bill Maher totally misunderstanding, I think, what happened with the Milo Yiannopoulos, I don't know how you pronounce his name, but this sort of like gay conservative provocateur who goes around speaking and getting people to protest against him. And he spoke at UC Davis, tried to speak at UC Davis, very close to Sacramento in the last several weeks, and they had to cancel his speech because of protests, and then he held his own rally and spoke with the megaphone to people, and in some ways it seems like he kind of thrives on that. But that's actually the second clip. The first clip is this whole other topic. This is Vice President Mike Pence over on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, where George Stephanopoulos asks him if Donald Trump is going to get rid of LGBT protections by executive order for federal workers. There's been some news stories I've seen where it was actually Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner who talked him into not doing this executive order. Like there was some leaked draft that showed that he was going to get rid of all the protections for LGBT workers, federal workers, by executive order. And you'll see Mike Pence tries to sort of dodge it, although he says some like nice things about lack of discrimination, even though he's really been anti-gay as governor of Indiana. But then he like tries to pivot it to this issue of the Johnson Amendment, which is about whether nonprofit corporations and churches can endorse political candidates, which is something Donald Trump's been railing about and misunderstanding. And it's actually something I know a lot about, having served on the board of the ACLU of Northern California, which is a 501c4 and has an associated foundation, which is a 501c3. And I've been involved in the governance and learning about those types of corporations for the last like 10 years now. And so I'm going to critique what Mike Pence says about that before I show the final Bill Maher clip about what happened at Berkeley, talking mostly to Michael Eric Dyson. But here's the Mike Pence clip from ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos that I will talk about after we watch it together here.
To let stand President Obama's executive order on LGBT rights. And it prompted this question from a prominent social conservative, Bob Vanderplatz. He said, our base is wondering why Obama's executive order is allowed to stand. What's the answer?
I think throughout the campaign, President Trump made it clear that discrimination would have no place in our administration. I mean, he was the very first Republican nominee to mention the LGBTQ community at our Republican National Convention and was applauded for it. And I was there applauding with him. I think the generosity of his spirit, recognizing that in the patriot's heart there's no room for prejudice, is part of who this president is. But I also think that the speech that he gave this week at the National Prayer Breakfast, reiterating his commitment to repeal the Johnson Amendment, that's put a chilling effect on free speech in religious institutions around the country, and his reiterated commitment to religious liberty are all a part of the kind of leadership that people
Do you
are
think
going to
a new
welcome
executive
from
order is
President
necessary
Trump.
on religious liberty, or is current law sufficient?
Well, the president's made it clear that he wants to take action on the Johnson Amendment. Back in the 1950s, the Congress passed a law that essentially threatened the tax-exempt status of churches and synagogues and religious institutions if they were seen to be involved in political expression. I have to tell you, I don't think we'd have ever made it to these hallowed halls back in 1790 if the pulpits of this country had been silenced from speaking about what they thought was right and wrong. And the president provided real leadership in the campaign where he identified the Johnson Amendment, and he told people of faith of every background across this country that he would work to repeal it. And he's directed the administration to begin to look at ways, both legislatively and through executive action, to do that.
But no executive orders beyond that, beyond fixing the Johnson Amendment, in your view?
Well, I think that'll be the purview of the president to determine whether any of that's necessary. But I will tell you, for our part, the focus of this administration will continue to be to have a safer America, to have a more prosperous America, and to continue to advance the president's agenda both on Capitol Hill and through executive action, and carry that message all across the country.
The president took executive action on Iran.
So first you saw Vice President Mike Pence there kind of dodge the whole LGBT issue. He said, you know, when he wouldn't rule out that there would be an executive order that would get rid of the protections. He just said he's going to continue to focus on this other stuff, but he didn't really answer that question. And he said like some sort of like, you know, rosy things about lack of discrimination, but nothing concrete. But then he also tried to totally pivot to this Johnson Amendment idea, which he completely mischaracterized, and Donald Trump has mischaracterized this as well, saying that it means that that religious people can't engage in political expression, and that's not what it means at all. It's tax-exempt churches. And I've made videos about this. I didn't have time before the broadcast, but after, if you're watching this as a recorded show, I'll put a link down in the video description to a Fox News bias video I made a while back about how they were trying to cover up the fact that these churches were, tax-exempt churches were trying to act like super PACs, which is if you there are two kinds of tax exemptions, 501c3 and 501c4. And churches are 501c3, just like the ACLU Foundation, where if you give a donation, it's tax deductible. If you give a donation to a church, 501c4s, your donation isn't tax deductible, but the actual nonprofit corporation doesn't pay taxes on any income, because it's nonprofit. It doesn't have to pay taxes itself, but donations to a 501c4 aren't tax deductible, and they can do more lobbying. A 501c3, which is what a church would also be, what they can't do is they can't intervene in an election, which basically means they can't endorse a political candidate, but they can take a position, moral issues. If they want to say that, we have to pass a bill to fight homelessness because that's what Jesus told us to do, or on issues, they can say anything they want about, political issues. They just can't endorse partisan political candidates when they're talking on behalf of the church. Like a pastor, a minister can't endorse Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton from the pulpit to his or her congregation if they want to remain tax exempt, because donations to a political campaign aren't tax exempt. There can be 501c4 super PACs or 501c4s basically, or it depends on the super PAC, but so they can be tax exempt in terms of the money they take in, but the donations you give to them aren't tax deductible. Anyway, so that was totally mischaracterized, because Mike Pence was saying that they can't engage in any political activity when what they can't do is endorse political candidates. And do we really want churches to endorse political candidates? I don't think we do. At least tax-exempt churches should not have the pastor saying, vote for this person, vote for this person. You can let me know what you think down in the comment section. But now I want to finally get to the last clip. This is about the protests in Berkeley against Milo Yiannopoulos, or however you pronounce his last name. And I think it's completely mischaracterized by Bill Maher, where they talk about it being a problem with free speech on campuses, when, first of all, the UC Berkeley campus, I lived in Berkeley, I lived in Berkeley for a while. My wife is a graduate, has an undergraduate degree from UC Berkeley. I have several other friends who went to UC Berkeley. I think it's a good school, and Bill Maher spoke at one of the graduations after some people tried to disinvite him. He actually got to speak, so I don't know what he's complaining about in terms of free speech at Berkeley. I even made a video about his speech at Berkeley. And the point I want to make about Milo, then students who disagreed with him had a nonviolent protest. That's also free speech.
But and you're saying what? That this is not good. Someone who I think we've booked on our show. So I guess we'll be putting on security there. I'm not against, believe me, I've been a longtime critic of colleges shutting people up. That is a problem on the left that we need to deal with, very much so.
No question.
Free speech should be something we own.
Look, not only do I own it, I went to DePaul University where I used to teach, and Brother Milos had gone there. And look, I'm an ardent defender of free speech because I don't want anybody telling me what book I should write and what speech I should give.
So this is Milo?
No, Milo's
his name?
Yiannopoulos, right.
Okay, yes. And he is a provocateur. He's been thrown off Twitter. That's how bad he is.
But let me tell you what, at the school...
But they rioted at Berkeley because this guy was coming.
They did, but I'm saying at the school where I visited, in the aftermath of that, in the wake of his visit, it wasn't just free speech. If it was free speech merely expressing ideas that are even abhorrent to the masses of people there, that's all right. That's the defense. But many black students were called nigger. They were called the N-word. They were disrespected. They were physically assaulted. That is the N-word. Well, there's another one as well, as you know, nigger. I use nigger, not nigger.
I don't use either one. I don't want to step in that, Mike.
Right. But so
buy his book. Don't say the bad word.
But my point is this, Bill. The point is that, yes, I understand people being against what happened at Berkeley, but also be against the inciting of a kind of riotous spirit where a guy goes around the country spewing the worst kind of venom. And this is my problem with President Trump. President Trump has amplified and magnified and indeed amplified some of the worst interests and in racial disharmony we've seen in half a century. And to have a white supremacist like Steve Bannon in the West Wing and to have a Jeff Sessions as Attorney General, it's a troika and a triumvirate of just transformative hate that we need to oppose.
Actually, I'm not a big fan of Michael Eric Dyson. I criticized him in a video I made a long time ago called Can Minorities Be Racist?, where he said they couldn't, and I kind of disagreed with his position there. And I think he said the word amplified twice there. Sometimes it seems like he's trying to use like too many words with multiple syllables there. And the other thing that I disagreed with was, like I said before I showed the clip, Bill Maher's characterization of the campus and UC Berkeley being responsible for intolerance of free speech, when I don't really think that was the problem, as I explained, at least according to, living only like 90 miles from Berkeley where I am and visiting there a lot and knowing people from Berkeley. And I haven't seen reporting that shows that that's actually what happened. And anyway, that's the last clip I wanted to show you, and I hope you appreciate all the clips I picked out for you, and I'm sorry for the stream problems for the live viewers. If you want to help out my videos, you can give me a thumbs up down there, or just a motivational, positive comment down in the comment section. You can share this video on social media, and of course, I appreciate all of you who support me monthly on Patreon, and some people have been getting my hashtag LiberalViewer candles, which I give out when your lifetime Patreon contribution reaches $30. I've been sending those out every month, so down in the video description you can become one of my monthly patrons, or if you live in one of the special 6 countries or 8 countries where YouTube allows fan funding, there's a little eye here you can click on in this corner where you can give me direct fan funding. That's another way you can support my videos. I don't know if you noticed the video I made about Kellyanne Conway's Bowling Green massacre. That was demonetized by YouTube because the subject was too sensitive. I'm a little worried that might happen to this video because I did talk about the Muslim ban and various other things. So the other thing I didn't like about Michael Eric Dyson was the other thing I was worried that might get my video flagged is he said the N-word and then he said the N-word, if you know what I mean. He said the actual N-word and then he used the euphemism the N-word. Why would you do both those things? That was a little weird. I don't know. I guess when you're on live television you get a little amped up and sometimes you say things that you might not ordinarily say. That kind of happens when I'm live streaming to me sometimes, so I have to be a little bit tolerant, though, like I said, I'm not a Michael Eric Dyson fan. But if you're a fan of mine, I appreciate you showing up every week during the Super Bowl with stream errors, whatever's going on. I really enjoyed showing you all these clips, watching them with you, giving you my commentary, reading the live commentary, and I'll read your comments for the recorded show. I will upload separately because of the stream errors, and I will be back next week, hopefully around the same time. I will be back for the foreseeable future, giving you my commentary and the best clips from the Sunday morning news analysis shows from the big 5 corporate outlets. And until next Sunday, or until I make another edited, produced video like I did 2 this week, so who knows what could happen this upcoming week, until whatever happens next on my YouTube channel, I guess I will just be seeing all of you around the internet.